Alexa, turn on Player One Start Studio.
Okay.
Hello everyone, and welcome to another episode of Retro Game Hunting here on Player One Start. So today is kind of a hybrid episode. It's not so much about the hunting as it is what I found. And I thought about doing a Retro Game Finds video on this, but I decided to show a little bit of the trip because I filmed my initial browsing and I forgot and stopped recording when I found an awesome item that I honestly didn't believe I would find in store again and get it so soon. Before we get too far into it, you may notice that, yep, I started growing a beard, and that is because I'm participating in No Shave November, raising awareness for men's health, and specifically against cancer. I participate in No Shave November for a very personal reason, but I do this to help raise awareness and raise money for men's health issues, so if you're so inclined to participate in this, you can. I will leave a link down in the description below. No obligation though, if you feel like you want to contribute, that is much appreciated. But getting back to it, let's go ahead and take a look at my trip, and I will show you the console that I ended up getting.
You pull me in, push me away. You chase my heart, then hit the brakes. You hold my head underwater until I can't take no more. I wanna breathe you in, baby, but what are we fighting for? We're setting peace for the sacrifice, running our hearts just to stay alive. Cause when it comes down to you and I, whoa, it's wild. It's wild, wild, wild.
That's right, after all of my years of searching, I have finally acquired an Atari Jaguar. And not only that, I was able to purchase every single game they had in stock for the Jaguar as well. The only games I had to order separately were Double Dragon, Doom, and Iron Soldier. And although these aren't the only games I want for this system, these are definitely going to keep me busy for quite a while to come. Another thing I'll need to collect is a second controller so I can at least try to play some two-player games. But overall, I cannot believe what a fantastic find I had this time. Oh my gosh, this console is almost in a mythical kind of status for me. I heard about the Atari Jaguar being the final console that Atari ever put out, kind of their last-ditch effort. And I've heard many things about this console. It is all over the board. I've heard some people say, oh, this was kind of Atari's greatest thing that they put out, and, you know, it was their most advanced console. I've heard a lot of people say a lot of bad things about it, and I kind of wondered, is it really necessarily that bad? And now I finally get my chance to get my own perception on it. Of course, this is not going to be a formal review video, but I am going to show you some of my initial impressions of the console and some of the games I got. So, let's go ahead and take a look. So, one thing I noticed when working with the Atari Jaguar here is that I've kind of run out of space on my shelf here for any other consoles. Now, I could get rid of the PlayStation over here because I have the PS2 hooked up, but I kind of like having them both there. And another issue I have is that the console actually uses S-Video, which I do have access to up here, but I'm also out of inputs, so I can't use that. And I think it's time that I finally started utilizing this second TV by plugging the Jaguar into it. So here is where I've plugged in the Jaguar thus far. Let's go ahead and see what it's like to boot it up. Oh no! I think that's a bad screen. So it let out a roar. Maybe I need to clean that cartridge again. Take that out. By the way, never do that to your cartridges. Clean that out, reseat. Let's try that again. Oh, is it going to boot this time? Alexa, Turn off Player One Start Studio. That's what I want to see. Wow, what a game to start off with this console. This is a game I have played on probably almost every other platform, but back in the day I would have most likely been playing this on a PC. But I have to say, compared to almost every other console version I played of this game, this is most likely, I think, the most accurate port I've seen on a console of the time. The graphics run at a decent frame rate, and I didn't really notice any slowdown or stuttering, at least not anything too severe. The sound effects are produced very faithfully, almost spot on with the PC version as well. But if you listen really close, you may notice an element that is missing, and is probably my biggest criticism of this game. Yeah, for some reason, there is no music. And I know that that's not a mistake. That was actually something that I think that they had to sacrifice in order to get the game running properly, or they didn't want to take the time to properly program. Most likely due to the fact that the Atari Jaguar is a notoriously difficult system to program for due to its many chips. But they did actually include the music. It just doesn't play during the game. It only plays during the screens at the end where it shows your progress. And that is really a shame because it does do a faithful job of recreating this as well, just not during gameplay. To tell you the truth, my initial impression of this game is that it is very good. I would most likely play it with the sound muted though, because even back in the day, I found this game to be a tad unnerving when playing in the dark with no music, and just having those creepy sound effects playing. But maybe that's just me. In terms of the controls, let's go ahead and take a look. Just look at the size of this thing. I have to hold the camera in one hand here, but this thing is quite hefty, but somehow comfortable to hold. D-pad feels kind of nice, and if I was only going to use the top, like the C, B, and the A button, I think that'd be fine, because it actually is a little bit ergonomically designed in the back to where it just feels nice and comfortable in my hand. So one thing I notice as I'm kind of stumbling around this stage here is that I'm not as precise with this control pad as I was with a keyboard back in the day, but it's not really that bad. It just takes a little bit of getting used to, and I think you'll be fine. The action buttons are used for firing, opening doors, and running. I couldn't find any other use for the keypad other than switching weapons, and that does make it a bit more convenient rather than having to cycle through the weapons if you remember the number or you have the controller overlay. You can just pick the weapon you want and keep going. The controller is a bit big and bulky, and some people may not like that, but it actually is not too bad, at least when it fits in my hands. I didn't really find myself getting too tired of it as I thought I would, but maybe that's just for this game. Alright, let's go ahead and try out another game I have been very curious about. So yes, this is Cybermorph. This game was very prominently featured in another very popular Atari Jaguar review video back in the day, and ever since that time I really wanted to get my hands on this game and play it for myself so I can see if that perspective is really a good one for this game. And yes, I can tell you from the standpoint of graphics, sounds, and just the overall art style and visual, I'll say unappeal because it doesn't really look appealing to me, this game is severely outdated. Back in 1993, this would have been impressive to see on a home console, but again, just not something that I think has aged well today. But one of the most surprising aspects of this game is the fact that it took me forever to get the game to say this phrase.
Where did you learn to fly?
And I never heard her say it very often, so I can tell you from that standpoint that maybe the review was more for comedy relief rather than actual review of a game. And since I need time to form my own opinion of this game in itself, I can't really tell you too much whether or not I enjoy this game or not, but just the fact that my initial impression did not match the reviews that I've seen about this game so far. Another thing that kind of shocked me about the gameplay is the fact that you can control your speed, which makes the draw distance not as big of an issue as other reviews of this game have really amplified as being a bad part of the game. On the other hand, though, I do find that the main gameplay element of this game is not to battle other fighters, but to collect tokens or pods or whatever else is scattered throughout the level. And the only time you're attacking other devices or fighters or whatever they are, you're doing it as a defensive move. Keeping in mind that this game came out the same year that Star Fox came out on a 16-bit console, I can tell you that the gameplay element is definitely not as good as that, at least as my initial impressions lie.
Well done. Good work. Portal now open.
So this is Checkered Flag, which was basically supposed to be Atari's response to Virtua Racer, which was Sega's arcade hit at the time, that was going to be ported to the 32X as well as the Sega Genesis with a special chip to make the 3D polygons run more smoothly. And first off, I like the options menu here, being able to switch the color of your racer, choose the weather on the track, choose the style of the airfoil, the tires. I mean, just all sorts of features that I don't think I saw in a lot of racing games, especially on home consoles back in this time period. It also kind of surprises me how fast the 3D features of this game load. Notice how everything is just instantly popping up on this menu. Even the port of Doom had loading screens in between levels, so this is actually very impressive. But when I actually started a race, my initial impressions turned south very quickly. Yeah, so unfortunately the frame rate of this game is not up to snuff, and it really impacts your gameplay. Combine that with poor steering controls, rather than having an analog stick you can control with, you have to use the D-pad, and I mean, hold that thing down for more than a second, and your car is going to veer off towards the wall like no other. And it took a long time for me to get used to this. I ended up playing in this game probably the longest out of any of these other titles that I played, just because I thought, okay, this time I'm going to get used to the steering. And sure enough, each time I kept making mistakes because I held that D-pad down around the corners a bit too long. So unfortunately, my impression of this game is that, yeah, it's a definite skip. It's not too expensive, which is why I grabbed it, and now it's easy to see why. Again, this is just an initial impression. I'll have to play through the game a bit more often for me to get a proper review out of it, but suffice to say for now, this did not make a good initial impression on me. I will say, though, overall, that I'm glad I did get this console because now I'm actually playing these games all for the first time, and it's giving me a chance to experience Atari's swan song in the home console market. And for that experience, this certainly does not disappoint. Alright, so that's about going to wrap it up for this video. Again, not so much of a retro game hunting video as it was what I found, but I hope you guys found this entertaining. And of course, I am still working on my Ultimate Sega Genesis review. I hope to have the rest of that out to you here real soon. That said, I want to thank you all so much for watching, and stay tuned because I have more content coming. I'll see you guys in the next one.